pre-1950 bedroom hacks that still keep rooms warmer. Before central heating, electric blankets, and wall insulation became common, folks survived winter by controlling heat at the room level. Bedrooms were treated as heat-managed spaces, not open volumes to be warmed indiscriminately. What follows are methods used widely before 1950, especially in colder regions of Europe and North America, and they remain effective today because they work with basic physics rather than modern technology. Bedrooms were deliberately made smaller to trap heat. Pre-1950 homes often had bedrooms that feel cramped by modern standards, and this was intentional. Smaller air volume meant less heat loss overnight. Large bedrooms were divided using wardrobes, trunks, or heavy furniture to create a reduced sleeping zone. In many working-class homes, a large bedroom would be partially blocked by a dresser or bookcase placed perpendicular to an exterior wall, creating a pocket of still air around the bed. This can still be applied today by positioning tall furniture between the bed and exterior walls, especially walls with windows. A modern equivalent would be using a bookcase or armoire as a thermal buffer. The goal is not storage convenience but air control. Cold walls radiate cold. Blocking them reduces radiant heat loss while also slowing convection. Beds were treated as insulated systems, not furniture. The bed itself was the primary thermal tool. Mattresses were filled with straw, horsehair, wool flock, or layered fabrics, all chosen for their insulating properties. Heat loss downward into the floor was considered unacceptable. Beds were often raised high off the ground to stay above cold air pooling at floor level. Underbeds were frequently filled with trunks, boxes, or even rolled textiles, not really for storage efficiency, but to stop air circulation. You see, an empty space under a bed just invites cold air to move around. By filling that space, folks could trap warmth a whole lot better. These days, the application is pretty straightforward. Just elevate the bed a bit. If it sits too low, insulate underneath with closed storage and add a dense mattress topper made of wool or layered fabric. Synthetic foam, it kind of mimics some of those properties, but honestly, wool still performs exceptionally well since it insulates while managing moisture at the same time. Bed curtains. Now those created a microclimate that, modern homes have mostly abandoned. Bed curtains were actually one of the most effective pre-1950 heating solutions, and they were standard in colder regions right up until the early 20th century. Heavy fabric would be hung from ceiling-mounted rails or wooden frames all around the bed, forming a sort of sleeping enclosure. This in turn reduced the air volume that needed to be heated by body warmth alone. The temperature inside a curtained bed could be several degrees warmer than the rest of the room within minutes. This was not decorative. It was survival-driven design. Today, this can be replicated using ceiling tracks, tension rods, or even a 4-poster frame fitted with dense curtains. Wool blankets, moving blankets, or lined drapery fabric work well. The goal is not sealing airtight, but slowing air exchange. Even a partial enclosure dramatically improves warmth. Window insulation was layered, not decorative. Pre-1950 bedrooms treated windows as liabilities. Single-pane glass was expected to leak cold, so households layered defenses. Heavy curtains were backed with flannel, wool, or quilted liners. In extreme cold, interior shutters or removable wooden panels were closed at night. Curtains were always longer than the window opening and tucked against the wall to prevent cold air from spilling downward. The space between curtain and glass acted as a dead air insulation layer. Modern blackout curtains work best when combined with thermal liners and sealed at the sides. Curtain rods mounted close to the ceiling and extending beyond the window frame prevent heat loss far better than decorative placement. For added effect, removable acrylic panels or seasonal interior storm windows replicate historical wooden inserts without permanent alteration. Floors were insulated because heat loss downward was expected. Cold floors were assumed not tolerated. Bedrooms used layered rugs, often wool, placed not for decoration but for insulation. Rugs were stacked, especially beside and under the bed, to prevent heat loss through floorboards. In rural homes, folks would place straw-filled sacks or even folded blankets beneath their rugs during those chilly winter months. This setup created a soft but insulating barrier that honestly made a big difference in reducing how much cold seeped in from the floor. Nowadays, layering rugs over foam underlay or some dense padding does pretty much the same trick. Bedrooms that sit over crawl spaces or unheated basements, well, they benefit a whole lot from this method. And slippers, those weren't just for comfort, but really more out of necessity, since keeping your feet warm was always understood to help maintain your overall body temperature. Doors were sealed up and weighted down to keep that cold air from sneaking in. Bedroom doors were seen as just another spot where the cold could get through. So, draft snakes, those fabric tubes filled with sand, grain, or sawdust, were set right at the threshold. And heavy fabric portieres would get hung over doors to block airflow, especially in houses where the stairwells would just pull all the warm air up and away. Well, door curtains were often thicker than window curtains, and they were mounted high enough to overlap the frame completely. They helped reduce those convection currents that would otherwise just drain heat right out of sleeping areas. Modern draft blockers and door curtains are actually direct descendants of these old methods. Even something as simple as a folded blanket, if you secure it above a door, can cut down heat loss a good bit, especially in older homes. Nighttime heating back then relied on stored heat, not on constant fuel. Bedrooms, well, they were rarely heated all the way through the night. Instead, folks stored heat. Hot brick stones or those metal bed warmers got heated up near the hearth and then placed under the bedding before folks went to sleep. The heat would get trapped by layers of blankets, keeping the bed warm for hours. This was paired with high blanket counts. It was common to sleep under 3 to 5 layers, with heavier textiles closer to the body and lighter quilts on top to trap rising heat. Modern hot water bottles and electric mattress pads replicate this concept, but the principle remains the same. Preheat the bed, not the room. This drastically reduces energy use while maintaining comfort. Clothing and sleep posture were part of heat strategy. Sleeping garments were chosen deliberately. Wool nightshirts, socks, and caps were common. Head coverings were especially important, as heat loss through the head was observed long before it was scientifically explained. Folks, people also slept closer together when possible, shared bedding, or positioned beds against interior walls rather than exterior ones. Beds were never placed directly under windows unless, well, it was just unavoidable. Modern equivalents, include wearing thermal sleepwear, using wool socks, and positioning beds away from exterior walls when rearranging a room. These small choices really do add up. Furniture placement followed heat logic, not aesthetics. Dressers and wardrobes were placed against cold walls to act as insulation. Empty walls were avoided. Books, clothing, and stored textiles all trapped air and slowed heat transfer. This is still applicable today. A full bookshelf against an exterior wall actually insulates better than drywall alone. And, well, a wardrobe between the bed and a cold wall really does reduce radiant heat loss noticeably. These methods, they worked together as a system. No single method carried the load, Pre-1950 warmth came from layering small advantages. Reduced air volume, trapped heat, insulated surfaces, and minimized airflow all combined to make unheated or just lightly heated bedrooms livable even in harsh winters. Applied today, these same principles lower heating costs, improve comfort during power outages, and offer resilience when modern systems fail. They require awareness, not technology. If you found this breakdown useful and want more historically grounded, field-tested knowledge like this, subscribe to Warfield Prepper Chronicles. And hey, share this with anyone who cares about practical history, real preparedness, and the old ways that still outperform modern shortcuts.